tree sign, and you can go all the way back to their property if you're going to pick apples, and that main road is on the grade. And you can see it follow, if you think in your mind, it follows all the way back to Piper Road, just almost exactly on a straight line. So it would be down below those roads. If any of you live on that part of Schaffer Road, they're going up the hill. If you go down the hill, it should be behind there. Then it curved right across where Adams Road comes out, and followed right below Schaffer Road, and there's some places you can find it. There's one gully there that it's gone, but you'll find it going along on that side. No remnants of it up here where it crossed, where Schaffer Road makes the T with Benjamin Hill. Can't see it there. However, walk up behind the, yes.
You sure about that?
Am I sure?
Because about looks like about maybe 20 feet south or 20 feet west. Sorry, down the hill from Schaffer Road, right, close to Benjamin. There's a little gully, and there's maybe 5 feet of what looks like a bridge.
You may have more imagination than me, or you may be right.
Well, sometimes you have to squint. But
no, actually, good point. You have to squint. Russ, he goes around looking for, he's seen more grades than I have all over New York State. Farmers plow them in. People use them for other purposes, and that preserves them, actually. If people take, like I said, Little Tree Orchards does that. Yeah, sometimes you have to squint and see. That's for sure. However, one place I guarantee you're going to see this is if you walk above the high school, and you go above the high school track and just go up, or you can come in from the Dominion pipeline sign on Norton on that. And I apologize if it's any of your backyards I walk through. I was staying away from your house. I wasn't bothering your dog. I wasn't picking your flowers. Just wanted to see a railroad. In fact, you can see this. You know where the Dominion pumping station is. You can even from there stand and look back. And when you look back to where the creek comes, you'll see the end of a grade that's cut off there. And that's where that bridge would have come. It's been eroded by the stream. Above that, it's in a big cut. So it was coming in a big S from right here below Schaffer Road, and a big S across the fields, and then you can see about the last quarter mile of it going to cross the bridge. And then it crossed Main Street, and we've just discovered that it's in your backyard, above between Old Main Street and New Route 13. And some of you may remember before they put in the new apartments here on the other side of Route 13, you could see a grade with stone facings crossing a creek on the right side if you were going out towards Elmira. That was the grade. It's been destroyed by that. It then goes around that hill, crosses Trumbull Corners Road right below the cemetery, so at the lowest point, and then crosses Fishkill and is above Fishkill. And the other place you can see it really well is at Millard Hill Road. If you heading up Millard Hill Road to the first farm on the right, and you look on the left, again they had to make a cut there, and it's coming there. It went through the farm where the horse the horse thought we were going to feed it, but we said, we're not supposed to feed you. Very friendly horses there, if any of it's your farm there. And then behind there, it would cross across Douglas Road and came up behind the stone house. And it crossed Woodard Road there, right behind the stone house. Crossed Hines Road right in front of what's now we're in Enfield, but you guys, is it okay if we go in Enfield a little bit? I know it's Newfield. And then it crossed there, right pretty much in front of that whatever that new center is they put up there, the new building. So those are the remnants. I have some maps here. I can show you. I have some maps. You can't see too well. And I had a bunch of pictures here, which you can see from the website of where they are. The other thing I had was some aerial photos to show you where it all goes. So, then the question would be, and some 1938 air photos where it's even clearer to see. In the 1938, more land was farmed in 1930s than it is now. There are a lot of areas. There's the Agricultural Research Service got started back in the 30s under Roosevelt, and one of the New Deal type programs. And one of the things they started doing with aerial photography is photographing all this farmland. And so then you could see things very clearly back then. Many areas, including on Connecticut Hill, I now know not to call it Connecticut Hill. On the 16,000 acre tract, many areas were still being farmed in the 30s or only more recently abandoned that are now state land. So those are some of the things you'll see, and I try to put myself in the position of you can imagine the town meeting back in the 1870 trying to decide, what do we do here? The Sodus Bay was a little bit of a chancy proposition anyway. Why? I don't know if you caught this, but I said it was going to interchange with the Ithaca and Athens at North Spencer. So it was going to have to depend on the Ithaca and Athens to get the coal to North Spencer, and instead of taking it on by itself, transfer it to the Sodus Bay. And how that was going to really work is unclear. The Public Service Commission, or the equivalent then, would give trackage rights or haulage rights, but I don't know had they thought that through. But anyway, they ran out of money, and Newfield was sitting in a big problem there for a number of years. I wanted to finish by mentioning the railroad we do have, because Newfield still does have a railroad. That was the Ithaca and Athens that was completed in 1871. Then Ithaca, it connected on to Geneva in 1873. The Lehigh Valley controlled this from 1890, and Lehigh Valley bought these at auction. Now this is an interesting point. So even that railroad that was backed by Ezra Cornell and the Ithaca people and had more financing, it also went bankrupt in 1876. The Ithaca and Athens, and by that time it was called the Geneva, Ithaca, and Sayre. It was Geneva and Sayre. And it was bought by Asa Packer, who was the Lehigh Valley. So that's when it went into Lehigh Valley control. It was bought at auction in 1876. So you see the finances were shaky even for a railroad that was serving Ithaca, which was a fairly important center, backed by important people and money in that town, good links to the Erie Canal and so forth, so they even went bankrupt. However, that railroad has lasted. The grade south, if you go to Newfield Station and you look up, you're looking up a hill of 1.3% grade. When you get down to Brown Road, which on the map is called Stratton, does anyone know why it's called Stratton?
Yes, there's a farm up on the top of the
That was the farm there?
That was the old man Stratton.
Oh, that's why it was called, so on the old maps from 1895, it's called Stratton, the Lehigh Valley called
History
Stratton.
has it that the old man Stratton used to go to the gin mill at Shady Corners. This is just history.
Just history.
I lived at Stratton's.
Okay.
We called it Stratton's Crossing.
The Stratton's Crossing, now where it crosses the creek.
Mr. Stratton got out of his horse and his horse blew away home.
From Shady Corners.
So one evening on the way home, the horse either got tired or something happened, and he stopped in the crossing and the train hit him. The horse survived. But Mr. Stratton didn't, and that rumor has it that that's why it's called Stratton's Crossing.
I'm glad you say rumor there. I'd like to know the truth to this. It sounds good. Now, Shady Corners, you're talking about where all the roads come together. And so, was it called Shady because it's shady bars, or because of the shady?
I may look old, but I'm not that old.
I always wonder why it was called Shady Corners. It could be because it had a lot of vegetation. Yeah, but it could have been a shady business going on, I don't know. There was a gin mill there. Okay. So that's where Mike Turback got his idea, huh? That could be. So that was called Stratton Station, and there the grade is actually 1.64%. Now, you may not realize that the standard for grades in the United States is 2% maximum. That's because when the Baltimore and Ohio built its line through West Virginia, that was its maximum grade. And then when the railroads were specified to be built in the West, the acts of Congress specified they had to be built no more steep than the Baltimore and Ohio. So that's why 2%, now that wasn't always kept to, but that was the concept. But that gives you an idea, because 2% is a pretty steep grade for a locomotive with adhesion and so forth. So you still have that line, and the line, I have a few pictures of it here. And I noticed in the tax map that the site of the Newfield Depot is still owned by the railroad. I mean, the right-of-way, I have the town clerk here, so she should know, but the railroad owns its right-of-way, of course, but at Newfield Depot it owns 7.2 acres that are around it, let's say, that was still the site, and they somehow they're still paying taxes on it and haven't given that up, although that depot's been gone a long time. I was a little surprised to see that. I showed a couple pictures of the washouts, and my final picture, I'm going to show this, and I hope someone can help me. This is on your Historical Society site. There's a wreck somewhere. Not too bad, and I was hoping you don't give any details. I know of some other wrecks, but not this one, because the ones where they went in the creek and so forth, but this is not that. So if you know where that is and what it is, tell them. You know.
There's a steel bridge there.
Which bridge?
A steel bridge, like a small steel bridge.
It's hard to see. It looks, there's a crossing sign behind it.
Brown Road.
Yeah, I guess that could be Brown. So you think this is crossing Van Busker Gulf?
No, Brown Road.
No, that's Brown Road.
West Danby.
West Danby. It'd be almost in West Danby.
Almost in West Danby. Yeah, no, I know about.
In the 1970s, it was in my back lawn.
Right.
Okay.
I lived there, and
Because there have been various wrecks
My
there.
wife worked nights at the telephone company, and she called me at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, there's a train wreck. You better go look. This is funny story.
You're not that old, because the people in this picture look like
Okay,
Woodrow
that
Wilson.
That was in the 70s. And that was at
Oh, in the
Brown Road.
70s, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That
sure.
was at Brown Road.
There have been wrecks along there, and we had also the washouts. That line is not a particularly easy line to maintain, as you well know.
The last washout cost us a lot of money.
A lot of money. I'm glad they fixed it.
Yeah.
I was a little worried, but they must be making enough money from the salt. And of course, now the future of this line is a little bit in doubt, although the salt may keep it as a short line, because depending on what happens with the Cayuga Power Company, if they convert it to gas, there'll be no more coal. If they shut it down, of course, then there'll be no more coal. And then we still will have need for the salt, but that will probably then not be part of the Norfolk Southern system. They would probably sell it off to a short line, but we'll see what happens with that. But meanwhile, you have a local 5 days a week and unit coal trains every now and then from Shire Mills, which is near McKeesport in Pennsylvania, coming all the way up here. So I'm sorry I couldn't show you the maps, but that's my story of how the Sodus Bay Railroad came to be, what Newfield was thinking at the time, why it caused such a big headache. Yes, sir?
When did the cogwheel system come in?
You mean in Ithaca?
Well, not necessarily.
Oh, everywhere.
I know my grandparents talked about it. They go from the side of a mountain.
Right.
And it was amazing how they could do it.
Right. Well, they still, of course, have those in Switzerland and